uppies? You want uppies? Oh my gosh, you want uppies. Okay. Uppies. 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 Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the new releases coming out in the first half of 2023 that I'm really excited to read. If you follow my channel for a significant amount of time, you know that I do not follow new releases. I'm just not that interested in following new trends, new books. Very few, very modern authors do I very much enjoy. I predominantly read classics or informative works, or works that are at least a few years old so they can be called more modern classics, in the sense that this is a good book. Everyone's saying it's a good book. I should probably read it. So very rarely do I anticipate books. However, there are a handful of authors that either I have predominantly enjoyed all their works that I've read, or I've read a couple of their works and I see a new book that they're releasing coming out and I want to read it because I've enjoyed their books before and I want to explore more of their writing style. I have 8 books here, and I'm also going by release date. So the first book is going to be released in January, and the last book I'm talking about will be released in, I think, June. So the first book I'm looking forward to is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So I have read a total of 4 other books. 4? Is it 4 other books? Maybe it's 3 by Grady Hendrix. Yes, it's 3. I've read Horror Store, which I loved. It was amazing and so lighthearted horror. And then I also read The Final Girl Support Group, and then I read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which I think the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires had mixed feelings of, but the other 2 I really enjoyed. So I look forward to reading his new book, which is coming out in January of 2023. He writes very much mysteries mixed with horror, mixed with more modern commentary on things. For example, in Horror Store, very much he was talking about consumerism and this IKEA-esque type feel when it comes to how retail is run and how the workers who have to deal with that react to it. So in a sense, he writes mysteries and horror, but he also writes more social commentary, and then he also has this very gritty, dark sense of humor, and I really enjoy his writing. He's one of the few more horror writers that I actually really enjoy. The next book is The Mitford Affair by Marie Benedict. Similar to Grady Hendrix, every book I've read by Marie Benedict, I have either loved or I've really enjoyed. I read Carnegie's Maid and I loved it. I also own a copy of Lady Clementine that my husband bought me, which I also love so much, which tells about Clementine Churchill, the wife of Winston Churchill, which is a great book. I highly recommend it. And I also read The Mystery of Agatha Christie, which I had mixed feelings about, but it's still a well-written book. I just wasn't as much interested in it, which is weird because I love anything Agatha Christie, but that one was just very meh. But I'm excited for this new book because it discusses the Mitford sisters, who were very much in the height of society during World War II. For example, one of the sisters was Hitler's mistress. Another one is either divorced or married to a fascist leader. And you have all the sisters being in different parts of the world. So there's 3 sisters, and it's a topic that is fascinating. And also, I love Marie Benedict, and I've loved everything I've read by Marie Benedict, so I'm excited to read it. The next books I'm excited for is going to be also released in January. The first 3 are all in January, and that is Ghost 13 by Simone St. James. It has been 1 year, I think, since she published a book, but she is probably most popular for her Sundown Motel, which I loved it. I know it was a somewhat divisive book. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but she writes very much supernatural mysteries. And I also loved Silence for the Dead, but her recent publication, which was the Book of Cold Cases, which came out in 2022, I didn't hate, but I didn't love it as much as the other 2 that I had read of her. So I'm hoping that I really enjoy Ghost 19, and I don't know what it is. honestly, I have no idea what it is, but it sounds like similarly it is set in the 1950s and woman moves into a New York house that might be haunted. That's all I know about it. So I'm really excited to read it because Simone St. James very rarely lets me down. Even like her worst books, I still enjoy reading. The next book I am really looking forward to is going to be released at the beginning of February, and that is The Porcelain Moon by Janie Chang. So I recently discovered Janie Chang because last year? 2 years ago, I read The Library of Legends, which was another book she wrote, which was amazing. It was one of my favorite books of the year. I think it was 2020, one of my favorite books of that year. And it followed this group of Chinese students during the invasion of Japan into China in 1936, I'm going to say 1937. It follows that, but then it also has more magical Chinese mythical elements, and it was a great book. I really loved it, and this Porcelain Moon sounds similar in a way. So it's set during World War I instead of World War II. It follows this young woman who is in France, who is Chinese, and I don't know much about it, but it is very much looking at the workforce in Europe that was brought in from different parts of the world to supplement the work that was needed during the war and following the war, the World War I. So really interesting topic and something I have not seen explored at all, so I'm very excited to read it. The next book I'm really excited for is a Lauren Willig book, and I've not read her for a few years, but I saw this book coming out and I am excited to get back into reading her books, and that's Two Wars and a Wedding. Basically, she writes adventure, suspense, romance. So her most famous series is the Pink Carnation series, which I'm pretty sure I read all those books, and they're rather bad. Like, if you look at the quality of things, they're mostly about like spies in different eras of history, and like romance. So they have to deal with like a murder or like an espionage mission or something like that. The Pink Carnation is kind of like a underground, like secret society, like a spy espionage society. It's a great series, but it's absolutely ridiculous. But if you like cheesy romance that's like historical fiction adventure, you'll love that series. I really enjoyed it. But so I saw this one coming out, and it follows these two sisters who are doing very different things, and I think the younger sister is searching for her sister 2 years after the first perspective takes place, and it sounds very good, but it takes place, I believe, during the Spanish Civil War. The Spanish-American War, which was between Spain and America. And I don't actually know that much about that war. So I'm fascinated to learn about it as well as read this book. The next book I'm really excited about is book 26 in the Gaslight series by Victoria Thompson. This one is Murder on Belfort Street. I need to catch up on this series actually this year, if I have time between like reading all the books on my physical TBR. But I think I am up to book 20. I love this series. It follows Sarah Brandt. She might be married by this point, but she's a midwife living in New York City around the turn of the century, late 1800s, and she and this police detective solve cases together. Basically, that is the entire story. Frank Mallory, that is her love interest slash partner in crime. The next one I'm very much looking forward to coming out isn't going to come out until May. I was hoping it was coming out earlier, but that's okay. I don't mind that much, and that is In This Moment by Gabrielle Myers. I've been gushing about the Timeless series for a while since I read the first book. When the day comes, my copy is in my bedroom, or I would get it. But the first book followed this young woman who woke up each day in a different body. So she had two different timelines. And when she turned 21, she had to make the choice of which timeline to stay in. Whether it was the late 1700s, American Revolution, or I believe around like World War I, Edwardian type era. So you have two different stories and they both intermingle together. And spoilers, at the end of the first book, she has a daughter, and that daughter has her same ability. So the second book follows that daughter, and I am very excited to read the book because I just love this series. I love the first book. I really hope the second book lives up to my expectations. So I look forward to reading that book. All right, and the last book is actually by Lisa C, and she's a writer I want to read more of, and it's Lady Tan's Circle of Women. So the book, I believe, follows a group of women physicians in China during the Qing dynasty. So I think it's like 15th or 16th century. I'll have to look. But so a lot of her books, Lisa C's books, very much follow women in China through like changing times. So one of my favorite books that she wrote that I really enjoyed was Snowflower and the Secret Fan, and it followed two women who communicated secretly through messages they would send each other on this like fan. Really, really interesting book, and I really enjoyed the book. But since then, I haven't read any of her other books. I know she has one that's set in like early Shanghai in the 1930s. I think she has a couple that are set around there. I know a big one of hers that came out a couple years ago was The Island of Sea Women, which again, I never read. And I keep, every time I see a new book of hers coming out, I keep telling myself I should read her books, and then I never do. So this one I put on my physical TBR, and I'm hoping to get to it eventually. So are you looking forward to any books that are coming out in 2023? Do you pay attention to any new releases? I know I usually don't, but there are a few exceptions, a few authors that I tend to pay attention to, and these are the few that I pay attention to. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!